Just to cover the basics of this camera, you'll notice there's two lenses, right? One is a wide angle lens and one is an optical zoom lens, which is really nice to pair those two together. We have plug and play connectivity, so it is power over Ethernet. We've got the auto tracking and the auto framing, and we have a lot of controls that you don't find in a normal auto tracking camera for how far do you want the camera to be zoomed in, how fast do you want the tilting, how fast do you want the panning. So some really advanced controls that provide for really high level, especially in education, because we're going to show how the SimplTrack can intelligently stop tracking when it's in an important presentation space, which will make the words more legible on the whiteboards and blackboards. So really cool stuff. The ability, we call it stage awareness, but zone management, to be able to have tracking zones, blocking zones, and what we call preset zones, which allow you to trigger automation when your talent walks into specific areas. This camera is a 1080p camera that can do up to 60 frames a second. And I have to say the video quality is a huge step up. This is a sharp looking camera. You can track subjects up to 55 feet away. And just the simple connectivity is awesome. The NDI, the USB, the HDMI, the PoE, it's awesome. Now, single sensor cameras, this is the big thing to think about, versus dual sensor cameras. There's some pretty big differences. Most single sensor cameras can do auto tracking, but generally can't really do auto framing very well. So that's a big thing. The other big thing is the stage awareness, right? The single sensor auto tracking cameras can only track what they see and only follow what they see. So it's likely that they can't zoom in quite as tight because they can lose the subject. Whereas with a dual sensor camera, that wide angle reference lens can steer the camera even if the subject's lost and allow you to do some really intelligent things such as preset zones. It also allows you to record the wide angle and the zoomed in view at the same time, if that's of interest. So having those two cameras is really interesting. I wanted to quickly show the two camera system we have here. So you'll see we have our, this is in tracking mode. I'll turn tracking mode off. We've got our 20x optical zoom lens here. Let me zoom into this for you guys. So this is our 20x zoom lens, and we'll show this live right now. Just the ability to pan, tilt, and zoom it, right? This is where we're at in our studio. Okay. But at the same time, we also have access to this wide angle lens. And what we're going to show today is the ability to have tracking zones. I'm going to do a blocking zone over here. So I'll block this area in case you have like a door or a window. You can have an entire tracking area. You can have areas of the reference zone that you don't want to track. And then these preset zones here we're going to show in a moment. These are really, really powerful, and they make for incredibly intelligent auto tracking decisions that can be made by the camera. And what we'll show is this preset zone right here. When Tess walks in front of this, it's going to call a preset so that whiteboard will be incredibly legible. Unlike a regular auto tracking camera where it's constantly moving left and right and reacting to every movement of the presenter, which makes it hard on the video to really read what's on that whiteboard. This preset zone, which I'll jump into here for just a second, this preset zone we have right here, this zone, what it's going to do is it's going to call a preset and perfectly frame the presentation space. So I'm excited to show all of this off in live in just a minute. But before we do that, let's just talk a little bit more about this camera. It has some really flexible use cases. Oh, let me zoom out here. Apologize. So you can see this. We have USB connectivity, so you can plug it right into your computer and use it with any online meeting software. We've got network connectivity, so we can bring this into any system that uses NDI, including Panopto, vmix, OBS, TriCasters, etc. This has HDMI and SDI. So you can use an HDMI capture card or an SDI lecture capture recording device. We also have a micro SD card, so we can record directly on the device, for good for backup video. Now, the camera management software that we were showing off is really powerful software. This is an enterprise-grade software that allows us to quickly search our network and connect to any camera on our network. We have really detailed configuration options. These cameras can not only stream to this software, but also RTMP, so we can stream to YouTube or Facebook. We can stream to 3 destinations at the same time. We can upgrade the firmware, things like that, setting a password. We can set up the NDI group, which for security, that's really important. If you're using NDI on an educational network, you're going to want to use an NDI receive group and potentially use an NDI discovery server so that only the people that you want to access these NDI video feeds can access them. And then, of course, some of the information on streaming. So all of your cameras will be searchable and accessible in this software. You can look at up to 4 cameras at the same time with this software. You have full PTZ camera control with this software. And then we'll show in a minute here how to set it up so that you always get the presentation spaces that you want. The nice thing about the SimplTrack3 is if we really dig into this software, and I'll get a little closer because I want to show this in detail, we have the ability to really dial in how the camera is going to react to tilt, sensitivity, tracking sensitivity, pan speeds, zoom limits, all of these things, whether we want it to automatically zoom in and out or if we want it to just have a locked tilt motion, for example. So we can really fit to any room with all these features here that we have. Now let's go out and talk about the next piece here. So we're going to look at our tracking zones, setting up an ideal tracking zone for your room, a preset zone, which once we do it, I think it'll really kind of come into make it a lot more sense. So we'll do that in just a minute here.
Yeah.
And then, of course, blocking zones. This stage awareness is really, really awesome because in a classroom especially, there's areas of the room that you don't want the camera going. There's areas that are the tracking spaces. And then these preset zones really allow you to just get the right area in focus and just turn tracking off when you don't need it. Tracking is great, but it actually can be distracting when you're trying to read what's on a whiteboard. So that's what we're going to dig into, and I think it's just about time to do a live demo of that. So let me do the setup for this.